You won't believe what my HOA neighbor did. This so-called compliance officer crushed my trash can 57 times in her $60,000. Escalated until I replaced it with a concrete bin and had her crush her own SUV instead. What started as kitty vandalism turned into criminal charges, a $12,000 settlement, and one very expensive life lesson about messing with the wrong neighbor. Imagine the scene. Dawn creeps over the neighborhood. Silence pervades the streets and, then crack. The noise of shattering plastic cuts through the morning air, and then the rough scrape of a bumper grinding on asphalt. A pearl-white Escalade speeds away, leaving my trash strewn across the driveway like confetti from a parade. Here's the thing about bullies. They never anticipate that their victim will fight back, much less with literal concrete evidence. By the time I finished with her, this self-proclaimed HOA enforcer had wrecked her own luxury SUV, uncovered a $47,000 embezzlement scheme, and discovered that some neighbors don't take kindly to fake authority and clipboards. But ask me this, what would you do if your neighbor used your property like a demolition derby every morning? Leave a comment below. Tell me where you're viewing from, whether a HOA craziness like this occurs in your town as well. Now let's go back. My name's Marcus Holloway. I'm 45 years old, a licensed electrician of more than 2 decades, and just divorced. I've been battling for joint custody of my 2 children, May, age 16, and Tyler, age 14. We reside in Pinewood Gardens, which is a cookie-cutter HOA Ohio suburb. In our neighborhood, there are lawn laws requiring the grass to be precisely 2.5 inches tall, and there are only 3 pre-approved mailbox colors. I purchased my corner lot house 3 years ago, shortly after the divorce, hoping it would be a clean slate. The kids would each have their own bedrooms, decent schools, and a secure neighborhood. What I did not anticipate was having to contend with Brenda Whitmorth, the queen bee of HOA enforcement. Brenda is a 52-year-old widow who pilots an Escalade the size of a studio apartment, pearl white. She has every HOA bylaw memorized and regards our monthly payments as her spending account. Because she's buddies with our HOA president, Gerald Thornfield, she feels untouchable. Here's why my corner lot is important. City code mandates that the trash cans be positioned within 3 feet of the curb for collection. So every Tuesday morning, Lycan happens to occupy a place on Brenda's daily power walk, the path at 6:15 a.m. sharp. The first accident occurred in September. I was preparing the children for school when I heard the ear-shattering crack of plastic breaking apart. I ran outside to see my new trash can crushed, trash and garbage scattered all over the place. And there's Brenda backing out of the Escalade, rolling down the window with a feigned concerned smile. "Oh my," she said with dripping insincerity. "These streets are just so narrow. I hope you weren't too attached to that old thing. That old thing was less than a week old. Brand new from Home Depot." But I gritted my teeth and cleaned up the mess as my kids watched from the window, mortified to see their dad slinking around the driveway in pajamas. It happened 3 more times that first week. Same hour, same SUV, same nauseating crunch. By Friday, I was suspicious. By Tuesday, I knew it was intentional. My elderly neighbor across the street, Mrs. Olivia, assured me. "She takes the long way around just to hit your can," she said to me in slow English. "Plenty of room the other way, but she always drives close to yours." I attempted to reason with Brenda once. Caught her on her afternoon stroll and said, "Hey," regarding the trash can business. But she shut me down with a sugary grin. "Marcus, you're new to communal living. These roads are for regular-sized cars, not huge bins obstructing traffic. Maybe you need to work on your timing recalibration. Like there's some enchanted time of day when the garbage truck is not going to need the can out at the curb." That evening, I began researching property rights, HOA regulations, and municipal law. It turns out that trash cans dumped on the public right-of-way are still considered personal property. Better still, our HOA has no regulations regarding trash bin timing or composition, only that they can't be. It's outside except collection day. At month's end, I'd replaced 4 cans and $2 down the drain. My kids were tense, and even the custody evaluator had written neighborhood stability concerns into her report. Something had to give, and that's when Brenda's smirk came in. She began making eye contact on her demolition runs, sporting a pleased smile that said, "I know right where I'm going." By October, she had upped the ante. I arrived home one evening to find a certified letter official size, thick paper, the whole shebang. It charged me with improper trash receptacle placement, creating traffic hazard under Section 4.7.3, and warned me in 72 hours to correct it or pay $50 a day fines. She'd obviously rammed it through the board quickly, before anybody could call foul. But this is where my experience as an electrician came in handy. If something isn't adding up, you follow the line to where it's shorted out. So I dug again. 3 hours later, jackpot. City law dictates trash cans 3 feet off the curb. An HOA purview. It ends at the property line. They literally had no say over where I placed my can. Equipped with that information, I went about preparing my defense as if it were a certification test. I installed a Ring camera to record her morning assaults. I had a professional survey paid for that, established my placement was 100% legitimate. I even managed to get Mrs. Olivia to sign a written statement. Although she quaked as she did so, "I don't want trouble," she whispered, "but this isn't right." Meanwhile, Brenda launched a counterattack on social media. She plastered next door with reckless homeowners putting children in danger posts. Comment threads erupted into war, her handful of steadfast supporters against everyone else who thought she had lost her mind. Then came the surprise. One of my friends at City Hall phoned with news. The city had received 4 individual complaints against my allegedly dangerous corner. Each said they were from a different witness, but all it's been clearly written in the same hand. When I went back and checked the times on those complaints, a data giveaway all filed within 15 minutes at 2:47 a.m. That's not luck. That's skill. My friend Dave from the permit office chuckled when he told me, "Either your neighborhood is infested with sleep-deprived writers," he said, "or someone's working late nights building a case against you. Either way." It was bad news for Brenda. By Thursday's HOA meeting, I had a folder so heavy it could strangle a horse. The community center reeked of old carpet and disinfectant, and for the first time in memory, the room was full, a record attendance of 12 homeowners. President Thornfield continued to futz with his tie like he'd swallowed a bee. Brenda sat up front, wearing a navy blazer that loudly proclaimed authority, but her hands shook when she reached for water. She was aware that she was in deep trouble. When they requested old business, I rose and set everything out on the table. I read the city ordinance aloud, displayed my survey demonstrating my positioning was legal, said I'd consulted Amanda Sterling, a property rights attorney who's fought dozens of HOA battles. You could see the color leaving Brenda's face. Thornfield cleared his throat and said the only thing he could needs further review. Translation, they had nothing, and everybody knew it. But Brenda wasn't done. As we waited in line to leave, she cornered me in the parking lot, hissing loudly enough for neighbors standing nearby to hear, "You think you're so smart? People like you invade good neighborhoods and believe rules don't apply." Mrs. Rodriguez gasped. Jim Torres, our custodian, appeared fascinated by his keys. The racial barb of Brenda's comment lingered in the air, self-evident to all. Fortunately, my phone was in my pocket taping the entire ordeal. My kids questioned me harshly that evening. Emma asked how this woman could dislike us. Tyler asked if we would be forced to move a third time. I hugged them and assured them I would deal with it. I was doing the math inside my head. Replacement cans, research on the law, hours of documentation. But something had changed. Other residents were murmuring about overreach by the board. Whispers were raised in venues where they could not be silenced. Brenda's outburst in the parking lot was evidence this had never been about safety. It was about control. The following morning, she switched her strategy. Instead of her normal, hurtling ramming, Brenda snuck past my can at a crawl speed, examining it like a commander planning an assault. When a habit forms, there's typically trouble in the making, and sure enough, November rolled around and Brenda cranked it up a notch. She armed herself with arcane regulations. I received a notice my lawn was above the 2.5 in maximum. They'd taken a measurement to 2.7 T5. My mailbox was said to have faded into an unapproved color. 3 small holes in a window screen suddenly merited fines. Each infraction was $50, with a 10-day grace period. So I walked through the neighborhood on a Saturday afternoon with a tape measure and a camera and snapped identical crimes on a dozen other houses. Thornfield's lawn was longer than mine. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox had faded too. Half the street had screen damage from last year's hail. Somehow only my infractions were noted, and while I was there, I had coffee with Dale Kowalski at Home Depot. The guy's poured concrete 23 years. When I explained my trash can story to him, he chuckled and said, "City code doesn't restrict materials. Plastic, metal, concrete, if it does contain garbage and meets size requirements."
You're good.
That casual remark seeded an idea. I spent the following week constructing a different type of defense. I chronicled every selective enforcement case and sent a formal complaint to the HOA regarding discriminatory patterns. Bureaucracies resent being used against themselves, compel them to enforce the rules in general, or own up to having targeted one homeowner. Either way, it would expose them. The more I excavated, the more doom it seemed for Brenda. Last year alone, she'd sent out 67 notices, 49 of them directed towards single parents, elderly members of the community, or minorities. A paltry 18 were addressed to married couples or longtime homeowners. The trend nearly shouted discrimination. It reeked of Fair Housing Act warning signs. Just contemplating a civil rights lawyer reading those figures made me feel a bit less isolated. So Friday afternoon began the concrete project. Emma and Tyler laughed at first, then a highlight stirring cement in the garage. Old rock playing on the radio, smell of hardening concrete transporting me back to my dad pouring our basement decades ago. It was a simple but clever construction, an empty bottom designed to distribute weight, drainage holes for purpose, steel rebar reinforcement to make the core indestructible. From the sidewalk, it appeared to be any other trash can, same size, same shape. 60 pounds of steel reinforced concrete was hidden inside. I placed the new reinforced can in the same place on Monday morning. At 6:15 a.m., Brenda stopped by in her Escalade, but she was more careful this time. Her initial contact was at approximately 15 miles an hour, the standard rate, but the noise was other. A resounding thunk, followed by the scream of metal against concrete. The running board on the Escalade curled up like paper. My kin remained stationary. Brenda drove 30 whole, shocked seconds in her SUV, revved, and attempted again from another direction. Same result. Additional damage to her car, none to my car. And that was the purpose. I had remained entirely within the law. No city ordinance broken, no HOA regulation transgressed. If she continued crashing into it, her insurance claim was hers to make. During the next week, she continued to attempt it. Each bump created another dent, another scratch, and by Friday, her SUV had about $800 worth of damage reported. My reinforced Ken got a few scratches that really made it look more realistic. The community began to gossip, and for the first time, Brenda wasn't controlling the story. By mid-November, she had become a private investigator, fixated, passing by at strange times, watching, jotting down notes, as if constructing a case theory. Her Escalade bore the bruises of her fixation, dents, scratches, and the aura of digging herself in deeper. Then, on a Tuesday morning, Mrs. Olivia phoned, voice shaking. Mrs. Olivia called me the following morning with the sort of news that makes you laugh and cringe. "Marcus," she whispered, "that woman was in your driveway last night carrying a flashlight and a scale. I observed from my window. I had to imagine it in order to believe it. Brenda, in her navy blazer and sensible shoes, sneaking around someone's yard at midnight with a bathroom scale, attempting to weigh a trash can. If there was ever a moment that shouted, 'This woman needs a hobby,' that was it. Her fixation just intensified." Jim Torres explained to me that she'd cornered him in the hardware section, bombarding him with questions regarding concrete mixes and what neighbors had recently purchased unusual things. She even began stalking my social media updates, looking for hints on weekend projects. Then she attempted to weaponize city red tape once again. A building inspector by the name of Pete, a harried, clipboard-wielding individual who obviously had more important things to do, appeared on my doorstep one Thursday. Ma'am complained about potential building code infractions, he explained. That disinterested tone that comes from filling boxes for a living. He paced around the trash can for 30 seconds, shrugged, and declared, "It's a garbage can, not a foundation. No permit needed." He'd encountered worse and done less. But Brenda wasn't finished with paperwork. The HOA wrote a letter demanding immediate entry to examine my property for supposed outside modifications. It was the sort of fishing expedition frowned on by the bylaws and the courts. Due to my midnight reading of the law, I knew the Nerat v. Lakeside Village precedent. HOAs aren't given carte blanche to search private backyards without particular cause. I responded graciously but firmly. No entry, absent a court order or emergency. If they wished to inspect, they could do so from the public sidewalk like everyone else. Brenda's Escalade was meanwhile turning into a billboard on wheels for my steel-plated can. With each collision came fresh dents and scratches. The running board drooped like a snapped wing. The bumper sported spiderweb cracks. Headlight clattered with an ominous tone. People were taking notice. Mrs. Rodriguez started timing Brenda's routine. The teens on Elm Street even started betting on daily collision outcomes. Emma thought it was both embarrassing and hysterical. "Dad, kids at school ask if we're the concrete can family?" Tyler, ever practical, suggested selling front row seats to the morning show to fund his college. Then Patricia Lopez, the sole board member with a still pulsing sense of fairness, took me aside. Los, to the community center coffee machine. Speaking in a hushed tone, she dropped a bombshell. Brenda had been lobbied Gerald to grant the board sweeping powers of inspections. And she'd been pushing maintenance contracts with a mysterious company. Patricia told me that Brenda always had a line-item budget, as if she'd scripted it for months, that seeded a new suspicion. Perhaps this wasn't all about control. Perhaps it was all about money. So one began researching public records. What I discovered made me spill coffee and lean forward. Whitmore Construction LLC Incorporated 6 months prior listed Brenda as 40% owner and a guy by the name of Richard Whitmore as president. Whitmore Construction was bidding HOA maintenance by July. In the course of the following 4 months, the firm acquired 7 contracts, sidewalks, landscaping, work at the community center, repairing playgrounds, some $23,400 worth in all. Each bid undercut the competition by only $50 to $100, enough to win. But not enough to arouse suspicion. Here's the kicker. Brenda cast the approving vote on each and every one of those contracts. 7 votes, 7 approvals, 7 checks paid to her business. The conflict of interest was obvious. Members of the board are required to disclose financial interests when they vote on contracts. Refusal to do so is a violation of state nonprofit laws and exposes the HOA to civil lawsuits and criminal fraud prosecutions. The electronic paper trail was available: business filings, meeting minutes, contract awards, HOA deposits. It all led one place. The timeline didn't help. Recalled the initial courteous exchange I'd had with Brenda over the trash cans on September 3rd. Her harassment campaign escalated 12 days later. My innocent inquiry into the maintenance budget appeared to coincide neatly with the launch of her campaign. Briefly, my concrete can wasn't just annoying her morning stroll, it was threatening. A racket based on selective enforcement and kickback-type contracts. So I went nuclear on documentation. I printed out everything, saved duplicates across 3 cloud accounts, and emailed the whole file to Amanda Sterling, my property rights attorney, with 1 graphic sentence. Urgent review requested, criminal implications possible. The power dynamics shifted overnight. Brenda had been condescending with me. She was actually in danger of being exposed for an operation that could bankrupt her and put her in grave legal jeopardy. Tuesday morning, she attempted her typical prank, another crash into my fortified can. Her Escalade had cost over $1,200 to repair. My can sat there as a testament to obstinacy. But I was no longer concerned with garbage cans. I was concerned with justice and the defense of the neighborhood. My garage became a war room that night. I swept the workbenches, placed folding tables, intact documents to a board with red string straight out of a crime show. Evidence in place, I could feel the magnitude of what we were doing, outing a scam, defending our community, and teaching a bully that sometimes the bullied fight back. By 7 p.m. on the dot, the center of the operation had converged. Mrs. Olivia was the first to arrive, clutching a thermos of jasmine tea as if it were her courage in a cup. She appeared nervous but resolute. Jim Torres arrived from work itself, still in his maintenance uniform, his tool belt jangling with each step. Patricia Lopez arrived armed with a sheaf of thick HOA financial records she'd silently borrowed from the board files. And last, Dale Kowalski walked in, carrying a box of donuts, grinning like we were on our way to throw a party when, in fact, we were getting ready to tear down a rotten system. "All right," I said, sticking up the last timeline on the garage wall. "Here's what we're actually working with." The presentation resembled something from a federal sting. We had discovered $23,000 in suspicious contracts, 7 documented conflicts of interest, 47 incidents of harassment, and naturally, the battered Escalade, still acting as rolling evidence of Brenda's deteriorating sanity. Patricia whistled softly as she read through the figures. "I figured there was something off somewhere," she said. "But I didn't know it was this organized." She was correct. Each time I questioned those expenditures, Brenda had a ready excuse. Dale leaned forward, examining the damaged photos. "That bumper alone will cost $2,000 to repair." "And the alignment?" "She'll be going through tires like candy," he grinned. "Your concrete can is giving her one very costly life lesson that evening." We developed our battle plan. Jim would monitor Brenda's every step in record retaliations attempts. Mrs. Olivia would head up the door-to-door campaign to mobilize neighbor support. Patricia would work from the inside, generating momentum for a complete financial audit. Dale would provide technical advice on any evidence related to construction. Legal strategy had to be timed with precision surgery. Lawyer Amanda Sterling assured us we had grounds for harassment, fraud, and board misconduct, but file too early, and Brenda could destroy evidence. Wait too long, and she would finish her cover-up. Timing was of the essence, and I recalled one old lesson from 22 years of electrical troubleshooting. Complex problems require multi-layered solutions. Fighting Brenda with property rights only would be equivalent to repairing a short by replacing a single fuse. You've got to fix the entire circuit, so our strategy was four-pronged. Legal pressure through complaints and lawsuits. Social pressure through petitions and neighbor mobilization. Political pressure with publicity and city oversight. Financial pressure by compelling audits and contract cancellations. By Wednesday, the community campaign started. With evidence binders in hand and presentation-ready pitches, I visited doors around Pinewood Gardens. The reaction was better than I had expected. 89 signatures in favor of property rights, 34 asking for audits, and 12 willing to testify. Even Mrs. Rodriguez, who nearly slammed the door on me, wound up angrily signing the petition. "That woman ticketed me for having my trash can out 15 minutes too soon," she spat. 15 minutes, as if she's watching us with a stopwatch. Patterns started to emerge. Brenda's loyalists were primarily long-timers who had enjoyed selective enforcement. The undecided were new residents, fearful of reprisal or property value declines. But the majority? They demanded accountability. In the meantime, media preparation was underway. Channel 7's investigative unit, Sarah Kim, had broken similar HOA scandals in the past. We assembled a press package filled with timeline graphics, expert legal analysis, and 12 minutes of edited footage of Brenda slamming my trash can repeatedly. The tale went viral. Our Facebook page, Pinewood Gardens Transparency, gained 67 new members over 4 days. Neighbors started sharing their own HOA horror stories. One even posted a time-lapse of Brenda's morning routine to circus music hit, spread like wildfire through the suburban grapevine, and Brenda, being Brenda, provided us with new material nearly every day. Thursday morning yielded collision attempt number 53, leaving her headlight hanging like a loose tooth. Children congregated early at bus stops just to observe the daily demolition derby. My daughter Emma reported that friends now referred to our house as the house with the indestructible trash can. Tyler, the budding entrepreneur, charged classmates 50 cents to view the montage on his phone by Sunday. It was all set Tuesday. Board meeting Wednesday. Media interviews Thursday. Criminal complaints. 118 residents pledged to show up. 17 prepared to talk. The trap was set. The evidence was tight. And Brenda. She had no concept the hammer was coming down, but desperation carries a scent-burnt coffee and panic. Sweating by the weekend, Brenda was leaking both in all but name. She went from petty to criminal overnight. Saturday evening, I awoke to the sound of his spray paint. Huddled in the window, I saw a figure squatting, spray painting my garbage can with neon orange letters. Move. They were already halfway down the block by the time I staggered out. The paint? 30 seconds with a power washer and it's gone? The video. License plate number and all? High definition Monday? It got worse. An anonymous call to the gas company accused me of dangerous digging. An inspector came out, apologetic but thorough. After 2 hours, he shook his head. Whoever reported this either needs glasses or a psychiatrist. There's no digging here. Then Tuesday morning, Jim caught me at the hardware store with grim news. Marcus. She hired private security. $200 a day to sit outside your house? For a garbage can argument, but Brenda's surveillance had a two-way street. My new cameras filmed everything her nighttime drive-bys, pictures she snapped under the cover of darkness, her increasingly frantic behavior. She was coming apart at the seams, and every second was on tape. The breaking point occurred on Wednesday. I heard Brenda at school, talking in hushed tones to another parent about bad influences and bad role models in our community. The racial overtones weren't subtle, and worse. They touched on my custody case. That evening, I enlisted Beth Morrison, a retired police detective with expertise in harassment cases. For $200 a day, she would follow Brenda's every step and provide testimony if necessary. By Friday, harassment escalated to new levels. Someone threw what appeared to be acid on my concrete can, staining it, but not actually harming it. False complaints against me inundated the city. Negative reviews overwhelmed my business profile. However, the most appalling find was in my driveway. Tyler was fixing his bike when he saw something strapped to my truck's undercarriage, a black box with flashing lights. "Dad," he called out anxiously. "What's this thing?" "A GPS tracker. Per quality, $300 at least stands strictly illegal." I took a picture of it, had it out, and went directly to the police. Officer Martinez looked tired but official. "Mr. Holloway, this is more than neighbor complaints. This is criminal unauthorized monitoring, stalking, harassment. We're starting a case file. And just to top it all off, Brenda made a $3,200 insurance claim, claiming that her damage was due to a road hazard on city streets. But my Ring cameras recorded weeks' worth of video footage of her clearly aiming at my can. When the State Farm/Ind investigator reviewed my evidence, 53 documented collisions. Witnesses, professional analysis, his response was immediate. "Ma'am, this isn't road damage. This is deliberate destruction with a luxury car. Your claim is rejected, and this is going to our fraud department." Brenda had officially stepped over the line, and she didn't even know her whole empire was on the verge of coming crashing down. Pressure was building like steam in a pressure cooker from the community. Our Facebook group had grown to 94 members. Each of them contributed new and outlandish tales of Brenda's harassment. Mrs. Patterson was quoted over rose bushes. The Johnsons were fined for children's sidewalk art, even Gerald. Thornfield, her old friend, was tactfully distancing himself from her mayhem. By Saturday, Brenda had accumulated collision attempt number 57. This one tore off her bumper. Seeing her, all dressed up in business clothes, crawling around my driveway collecting broken plastic while neighbors looked on from their windows would have been amusing if it hadn't been so. Pitiable. By Sunday evening, our case file was finished. Every crime on record. Every witness affidavit signed. Every fraud revealed. Every neighbor mobilized. Tuesday's board meeting wouldn't be a discussion, it would be a public hanging. Brenda just didn't realize it yet. and then came. Monday morning at 12 hours to curtain, Gerald Thornfield called an emergency closed-door meeting. His gravelly, anxious voicemail gave him away. This was pure damage control. Inside the community center, 3 board members huddled with their high-priced lawyer, Harold Masterson, trying to figure out just how deep in quicksand they'd sunk. Through the window blinds, I could watch Brenda waving papers like surrender flags. Patricia Lopez texted me play-by-play inside. Brenda's saying you made terrorist threats. Wants emergency powers? Harold looks like he wishes he was defending serial killers. Instead, the cover-up attempt was as sloppy as Brenda's parking skills. Someone had backdated disclosure forms for Whitmore Construction, but the email timestamps told the truth. You can't rewrite history when public meeting minutes already record the original votes. Meanwhile, the insurance fraud probe was snowballing. Investigator Maria Santos had subpoenaed the HOA's financial records, emails, and contracts. The paper trail wasn't just obvious, it was damning. Then came the most shocking twist. Tuesday afternoon, Brenda's husband, Richard Whitmore, called me himself. His voice was a mere whisper. Marcus, this has to end. She spent $8,000 on lawyers, surveillance, and fixes. Our insurance has been dropped. Contracts are falling through. What would it take to make this disappear? For an instant, I almost sympathized with him. Almost. Richard, I told him bluntly. Your wife harassed my family, trashed my property, made false accusations, and stole from 127 homeowners. This doesn't disappear with an apology and a payment. 2 hours prior to the meeting, Brenda made her final desperate bet. An emergency restraining order. Phony voicemails, photoshopped pictures, even witness testimony from non-existent people. Judge Patricia Williams threw it out on the spot. Admittedly, these recordings were doctored. These photographs posed. These witnesses do not exist. Filing false evidence is contempt of court. This is your only warning, Mrs. Whitmore. But Brenda's legal woes were piling up quicker than her fender benders. The state insurance commissioner had referred Santos to a fraud case. The DA was considering stalking and harassment charges. The IRS now had her financials in their grasp. By 6 p.m., the community center resembled Black Friday at Best Buy. Vehicles blocked Maple Street. Individuals walked in from 3 blocks away with folding chairs. And the press trucks had claimed front row seats. 118 residents arrived for a room designed for 40. The air was thicker with tension than the industrial coffee scent. Brenda showed up late. Wearing morning black with her attorney by her side and visibly shaking, Gerald fiddled with his tie as if adjusting a noose. Harold Masterson started to drone on with frivolous complaints, but Mrs. Olivia interrupted. "Excuse me," she said, displaying notarized witness statements, "but who among us has been stealing money?" The room thundered with applause. 17 residents stood in line for public comment, with receipts, photographs, and personal testimony. 3 bankers' boxes were filled to the brim with evidence. But the knockout blow was yet to come. At 6:45, the door swung open. Officer Derek Martinez walked in with a folder. "Sorry to intrude," he declared, "but I have a warrant for insurance fraud and stalking charges." The blood drained from Brenda's face quicker than the coolant from her Escalade. Game over. What followed was drama. I got up and laid out the case like a prosecutor. 57 attempts at collision. The GPS device. Spray paint. Phony insurance claims. Then I brought up the financial records on a borrowed projector, $23,400 channeled from HOA. Fees directly into her family business account. "You've all been paying more fees," I said to the crowd. So Mrs. Whitmore could stuff her pockets with your money. And then came the highlight reel, 12 minutes of Brenda, smashing my trash can. To the tune of crunching metal, the crowd gasped, laughed, and shook their heads. Finally, I addressed her directly. "Mrs. Whitmore, you spent thousands on attorneys, crashed your own vehicle, engaged in fraud, and harassed my family over a $23 trash can. Your true crime, though, the $47,000 you swiped from this community. The room erupted cheers, anger, shouting. Brenda snapped. She sprang to her feet, screaming, her rage dripping with thinly disguised racism. Cameras recorded it all. She tore at my evidence boards, attempting to tear them asunder before neighbors caught her. Mascara streamed down her face as she screamed of saving the neighborhood. It was meltdown of the millennium. Patricia Lopez stood up. I moved to suspend Brenda Whitmore from the board pending investigation and audit. The vote, 4-0. Unanimous. Officer Martinez handcuffed her right there. Justice. Served cold and concrete. The aftermath was immediate. In 48 hours, Brenda quit. By Thursday, the DA charged her with fraud. By Friday, her insurance license was taken away and Whitmore Construction suspended. An emergency audit returned $47,000. All the homeowners received a refund check by Christmas. Richard phoned me one final time. The settlement check is in the mail, $12,500. Brenda's moving to Florida. His voice was empty. I nearly felt sorry for him. Nearly. The neighborhood changed. Patricia Lopez won the special election as board president. New bylaws mandated total financial disclosure and open bidding. The first project? Refurbishing the playground with the recovered funds. Emma and Tyler assisted with its design vindication in steel and swings. The case Holloway v. Pinewood Gardens was referenced throughout Ohio. The legislature enacted new accountability legislation. Channel 7 received an Emmy. My trash can became a local landmark, memorialized in the community center with a plaque stating, "Property rights protected." 2023 in each September. We celebrate the concrete can days, festival bounce houses, barbecue, homeowner rights workshops. What was harassment turned into community celebration. The settlement supported a scholarship fund for students who combat injustice creatively. Emma received journalism offers after writing her college essay about combating corruption. Tyler created his own YouTube channel, Suburban Justice, bringing HOA abuses in the Midwest to light. Even my custody case turned out better, the judge said. My children had seen the importance of standing up for what was right. Not by using guns, but by using facts and persistence. My company flourished with word-of-mouth referrals from neighbors who appreciated my thorough documentation. Occasionally, David does vanquish Goliath, particularly if David has allies' forethought. And 60 pounds of steel-reinforced concrete. Outro for YouTube. Leave a comment with your own HOA nightmare experience. Let's compile a database and take down corruption together. And don't forget to subscribe for more crazy stories where the little guy beats the giant. Justice is served cold with receipts, community backing, and perhaps even a concrete trash can.